nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Perez Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to a Friday edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. This is your host Kiyan Sobhani, and I'm joined as always by Jose Perez every Friday because we preview Real Madrid's opponents on the weekend. And coming up is a delicious, tasty matchup. Although, to be quite honest, the Derbi always turns out to be boring as heck. So probably not that tasty, but hopefully some tension at least and some controversy. I say that half joking, but at least it does add a little bit of spice in moments like this. Sometimes they're not tactical masterclasses or things of beauty, but they're at least entertaining in some way with clashes and butting heads and whatnot. So joining me is Jose, of course. Jose, how are you?
Hello, Kiyan, and hello, everyone. There's always that feeling of like looking forward to this, but not really looking forward to this because I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about Atletico tactical issues, and it's going to sound like these guys are terrible, and it's still going to end up 0-0, 1-1. Like it's going to be like predictably like very even game because whatever state they're in, it's always hard to break down Atletico somehow, even in times like now where they're not even defending as well as before.
Yeah, I was telling Diego this on the Churros podcast yesterday, but I've been to almost every derby, I think, in the past 5-6 years. And if it's not me, I think Ewan has been to a couple. And without fail, they're always so... I find like you just realize how overhyped this game is in terms of the spectacle.
Yes.
Like it's a very boring game, either stalemate or 1-1 or just someone nicks it. But I don't know. Here's to hoping this weekend will be a little bit different. And obviously the whole dancing thing before the game at least added a little bit of fire to it. We let's just get that out of the way right now, Jose. Wherever you end on the spectrum listening to this, whether you're on the fence that Koke is evil for saying what he said, or you think it's completely taken out of context, or you think dancing is great, dancing is terrible, let's just get that out of the way because people want to hear our thoughts on this for some reason. Jose, what do we need to say about this? Anything?
Honestly, I wish I didn't have to say anything because to me, this is one of the dumbest football debates I've heard in a while. And it's just one of those situations where just a lot of Spanish media is just trying to stoke up controversy where there shouldn't be. And I'm going to put blame, like a bit more blame on media for this simply because this should be a non-issue and there is no reason to amplify things. It's like what happened originally against, say, Mallorca. He goes, celebrates, maybe other people in the opposition team are angry at it. Everyone's heated up in a game. It happens. That's it. And that's all the issue. And I think to a degree, that's really where Koke's statements were going. It's just it's him. He can celebrate however he wants. The fans are probably not going to like it because opposition fans are not going to like the opponent celebrating a goal. So it is what it is. And that's the thing. Like I feel like even for the players, they're from Koke's perspective, it's just like it is what it is. He doesn't see any much reason to make a fuss out of it, but all the media is trying to make a fuss out about it and bring everyone and try to get the worst, try to bring everyone's statements as most out of context as they can so that they can stoke controversy. And it's so boring because there are so many other things that could be talked about.
So here's where I stand on it. I agree. I think, and you brought up Aguirre there in passing. So that was actually somehow a non-story. And what what became blown up for this particular instance was the fact that it was Koke and it was the upcoming Derby, right? If it was some player we never heard about in the second division, this wouldn't have even gotten the light of day, right? Aguirre literally said in the game, Mallorca versus Real Madrid, hit him to his players to get Vinicius. And no one talked about that. I mean, Lucas and I were asked about it on the mailbag on Thursday. And what I said was, even then, I was like, okay, well, that's not a great message. However, I'll give you some context. And I think there was not necessary something malicious intended in that even. You know, growing up here playing football in Canada, we always said, you know, if someone is like on a counterattack and they're dribbling in transition, a common thing to say would be like, take him down, take him out, get him, like all that stuff, right? It's not saying break his bones, destroy his spinal cord, all that stuff, right? So that's why I kind of like, I'm not saying Aguirre's comments were like this beautiful message of football, but I'm like, okay, in the heat of the moment, like take him out or get him or make sure he doesn't get into space, foul him or whatever, do what you need to do. Same thing in basketball. If someone comes into the lane to dunk on you, you're going to send a message. You're going to hit him. You're going to make sure, hey, you're not coming in here dunking on me. You're either getting fouled or you're going to get put in your place, or you're going to be too scared to come back at me next time. Same idea. And so with the whole Koke thing, I saw one of my favorite journalists, who is not the one who works for Managing Madrid, who I also love, but they tweeted something, and they tweeted the Koke thing, and I'm very good friends with this person. They quote tweeted and said, this is an unbelievable thing for Koke to say. And I was like, okay, I'm excited to press play. And I pressed play, and I was like, I didn't think it was that bad, honestly.
No.
And the quote that, like, you know, he's going to be in trouble was taken out of context in the sense that, like, it's literally just about, like, he can celebrate how he wants. However, just so he knows, there may be implications from out the crowd if he does that. That's how I interpret it as, okay? But I will say this. I still liked it because I like trash talk. That's always been me. I like the trash talk. And let's be honest, like, I definitely didn't mind waking up to Neymar and Vinicius just celebrating the art of dancing after a celebration, which is something I'm definitely for. So at the very least, I thought that was cool that it brought light to be like, hey, this is nonsense that we would even get mad at anyone celebrating. I don't care. Griezmann, I never cared that Griezmann danced. I never cared that Vinicius danced. I never cared that Ronaldinho danced. To me, football is art. Celebrate your you just be your artistic self, you know. And the other thing that concerns me is that, for example, people like a lot of these people who might complain about this might be the same people who are then gonna ask, is like, hey, why don't we have like pure entertainers in football like Ronaldinho was? Well, because the times you've had those, like Vinicius or Neymar, who got a lot of the same treatment, they keep complaining about everything they do. And I genuinely, like, football at this stage, like, there's the news cycle, the way it's done, is just so frustratingly focused on, like, small, meaningless details that it really misses out on so many entertaining things. People in this era would not enjoy Ronaldinho, for example, as much as people did 15, 20 years ago, because we've gotten used to knowing every single detail about players' lives, looking at what they do on a weekly, talking about what they do on a weekly, daily basis, that we just take the fun out of all of it. And people are going to keep wondering, where did the entertainers go? I don't think they've gone anywhere. I just think that the world is now more, I don't know, more upset at everything every day. Yeah, here's and look, social media in particular, I feel like there's more. I've said this many times this season. It's bigger than ever. There's more vitriol than ever. Unfortunately, there's actually a lot of good stuff in there that also gets lost. There's a lot of great people posting great things. But our human brain is wired to look at the 1% that is very loud and not the other stuff, right? And so I feel like you'll see a lot of the bad stuff by default, because it actually does get amplified quite a bit. But my theory about this is that Because to me, like, so when I was a kid, Jose, I started watching football in '98. I was a kid. The reason I fell in love with him, like, I didn't know anything about tactics at the time, or stats, or, you know, real analysis and stuff. Like, to me, if Zidane did a gorgeous flick in midfield and it didn't lead to a goal, I wasn't like, oh, well, that was redundant. I was like, man, that was awesome. And so that's why I fell in love with the game, right? And so I always resonated more with that side of things, the trash talking, the showboating, the artistic side of football. That's why I will never forgive Rafa Benitez for telling Luka Modric not to use the outside of his boot. Obviously, that was a terrible statement to make, right? But my theory, Jose, with your concerns too, why we're starting to move away from that a little bit and people are getting upset about it, is that I think a lot of people wish they could play football like Vinicius. And I think a lot of people in turn could have actually wished they danced like Vinicius, if I'm being quite honest. And I think if they could do that, they would do that as well. But Koke can't play football like that. And this is not about Koke. Again, his words were taken out of context to an extent. But I think if any footballer could do that, they would do that. And I think because they can't, their alternative reaction to it is to kind of just drag it down and criticize it and make it seem silly and just because they can't do it. That's my theory about it. So we can talk about tactics.
Yes. Gladly, even though with Atletico, it's, again, I feel like Atletico tactically, apart from that season where they won the league title, it's a bit like Groundhog Day. Every season follows the same script every time. Starts out a bit promising. People are wondering, oh, is Atletico finally going to play more offensively? Interesting. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're scoring more. Then you have like a period of like mid-season crisis. They're about to drop out from Champions League, etc. And then after mid-season crisis gets solved by going somehow back to the same deep block stuff that they've always done and that always seems to get the job done for them. So, and right now it seems like Atletico are going right on the same path as every season. Started a bit promising out in preseason. Preseason looked good. First game against Getafe had issues, but they won it. They won it well enough. And then after that, just things have been starting falling again. And the team is running into many of the similar issues that it had last season. They didn't have the money, I guess, to get a center back, and the center back issue is still there. They still don't have a Diego Simeone team still doesn't have a reliable set of center backs. That's hence the whole Axel Witsel thing playing as center back, and now they don't have Oblak either playing at goal, which is of course a massive loss for Atletico. The main thing looking from Real Madrid's side is it would be real nice if Benzema were there to like take advantage of those weaknesses in Atletico's box.
So I'd be curious to see how they line up. I mean, I think I have a hunch, but like if you look at their last two games, for example, and I guess we can just quickly go over maybe where they are in the standings and stuff, and just flip to the tab. They are currently sitting in 7th place.
Mm-hmm.
Offense hasn't been great, but they also, defensively they haven't been that airtight either. So it's kind of like they've been a bit mediocre based on their standards from, like, let's say a few years ago. You brought up some of their patterns in the last few years. The last two games, a 4-1 win over Celta, and then a loss to Bayer Leverkusen. They had the one key difference, I would say, and obviously we know that Jan Oblak is injured, so he's not going to play, and he hasn't played in the last couple games. But Felipe and Hermoso played together against Leverkusen, and that was a disastrous pairing. My hope as a Real Madrid fan is that they would go together again, and Rodrigo and Fede can just have a field day in that half space. But I don't think Simeone is going to do that again. So how do you see them lining up in this one?
The key thing, like you mentioned, is the center back question, which is that's really the tough one, because I still don't know what would Simeone be planning to do there. One thing is that in the Leverkusen game, let me see. Yes, so they use Renildo they used him as a left wing back. He usually makes most sense as the left center back. And that was specific preparation against Diaby from Bayern Leverkusen. I assume that's not going to happen this time around. So I'm assuming that Renildo is going to start more in the left center back role. Then it'll be interesting to see something that's going to be interesting to see, as usual, from Simeone is what's going to be the preparation, though, on the right side. Because Nahuel Molina, who is now basically their only right wing back, hasn't been doing that great. So I wonder if Simeone has any specific match preparation for that. I just don't see who else can he play there unless he gets creative and plays, I don't know, Marcos Llorente there. Like that's like, if I think in terms of like creative solutions, or I guess Saul. I mean, he can always try the Saul wingback solution. But I say this because I'm just not sure. From Simeone's perspective, the one thing I see in the defensive lines that I wonder if he's going to trust Nahuel Molina against Vinicius. That seems like a matchup that's going to worry him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the options you're mentioning, it's like it doesn't really make sense on a football logical level. Like Saul left wing back, like we've seen it before, but like, what are we really talking about here? So I mean, to be quite honest, I'm just shocked at how well Witsel is playing at center back.
Yeah,
and I never thought that would happen. So like he gets some of these things right. Like, you know, Carrasco as a left wing back has been a bit of a revelation in the last couple of years. That has worked because he works hard on both ends of the field. He creates freedom for whoever's on the left, like in Belgium, like that creates freedom for Hazard, and Atletico with sometimes Joao Felix. And so that has worked. So some of these stuff works. Even Marcos Llorente, it's not his best position, but he's worked that right back. So I remember in a derby last year, not the one, obviously, the Atletico won at the Metropolitano last year, which Real Madrid had already won the league at that point. But the one before that, the Llorente-Vinicius matchup was interesting. And also Llorente and Mendy also had several clashes together, and I thought that was interesting too. And I think I'd be curious to know, like, do you just expect the stereotypical scheme, Jose, where Atletico go in a low block, they try to prevent space for Vinicius cut-ins, they'll pack the flanks, they'll rotate quickly? Do you see them doing anything more daring than that?
Absolutely not. I would even argue that they're going to somehow find a way to be even more defensive than usual, because I think this team is like extra concerned about the fact that Oblak is not there, so they might want more protection, even more protection than usual this time for their backup keepers. So I absolutely do not see them moving away from the deep block or trying anything more than that. One could argue that when your center backs are not that good or not that solid, you should be pressing higher. But that's not how Simeone logic works. So I presume that the deep block is going to stick. Like I said, for me, some of the big factors here are really who the wingbacks are going to be. Like, he's at some point, Carrasco is like, let's just say that Simeone has lost a bit of confidence in him and is not starting him every time. We could see weird experiments like Saul at left wing back again. And again, I am curious to whether he will try. He will keep Nahuel Molina at right wing back or not. The trio of center backs, I do think it will be Renildo, Witsel, and likely Felipe. The midfield unit, that will be interesting. We know for sure that Lemar cannot make it, but then the rest, I'm not entirely sure. So I think they started against Bayern Leverkusen with Llorente, Koke, and Saul. I wonder, knowing Simeone, he's gonna try. If Kondogbia is available, then he will try. He will use Kondogbia instead. So Kondogbia and Koke are very likely to start. We'll see who the third midfielder is. It would make a lot of sense for Simeone for it to be Llorente. Just thinking more about the defensive side of things. So that's how I'm seeing their lineup at the moment. But right now with Atletico, Simeone is trying a bunch of things, a bunch of lineups. We could get surprises.
Yeah, Kondogbia started the game against Celta, but not the game against Leverkusen. That's a little bit of a strange decision given the fact that if you're going to go into that game without Oblak and then you have Hermosa and Felipe together, you would think Kondogbia would at least add some insurance and balance to a team like that. But he did not play. I would expect him to play in this game. A key piece of them scoring is going to be, Joao Felix, who has, I think, 6 goal-creating actions in the league, which is joint top. He, obviously, versus Real Madrid's high line, I'd expect Rudiger to play. How do you see that matchup playing out? And will Joao Felix get any help in transition from his teammates?
Depends a bit on the teammate. I think, I'd be surprised if, I can see Simeone not starting Correa because he wants to use him for the second half, but I think Correa has to be you're going to be in a situation where Real Madrid is going to have most possession, where Real Madrid is going to be on your half of the pitch most of the time. It makes sense to have Correa as a threat in transition alongside Felix. So that, to me, is what makes the most sense. It's going to be a hard one because Atletico keeps defending quite deep. And it's been the same thing with Joao Felix for the last 2-3 years at Atletico. It's him against the world, really, because the rest of the team is too far away to help him. So it's going to be... So as usual, he has to get whatever melons get thrown at him from the back line and try to turn that into something. Either hold on to the ball for enough time so that the rest of the team can move forward, or just do an act of magic that gets the team, that gets him to keep moving forward. But it's a tough one. But it's going to be a tough one for him because there's not going to be much support. This is not the same Atletico as of, say, 2 years ago that actually had a really neat possession game and could reach Joao. They could actually pass the ball to Joao Felix in good conditions. They cannot do that right now. Atletico doesn't have that structure right now. So it's going to be hard. Of course, if they can get the ball to him in good conditions, then it would be then you'd have the situation where maybe he can exploit the back of Real Madrid's midfield line, try to be in that space between Real Madrid's midfield and defense, try to receive the ball at the sides of Tchouaméni and try to stay away from Tchouaméni. That would be the objective. But again, I am not sure Atletico has right now the capabilities to get the ball to him in good conditions.
So another talking point here is obviously the whole Griezmann thing. He's coming in minute 60, whatever, to ensure he gets under the one half of football that he needs to play in order to fall in line with the clause of not paying Barcelona. So whether they negotiate out of that soon or not remains to be seen. He's been playing well off the bench. That's a factor. Mm-hmm. In all of Real Madrid's games, they've been able to strangle opponents in the second half with their depth and fresh legs that come in. In this case, Atletico do have a decent attacking depth chart. Well, maybe they get Correa and Griezmann in the second half. Do you think Griezmann, if that clause did not exist? Because Simeone did say they're better with him on the field than without. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes that's contextual in the sense that sometimes players are better suited off the bench and they play better because of the game state they come into or whatever. But is this team better with Griezmann as a starter if they could?
So I am actually not that sure about the answer to that question. I know Simeone is sure about the answer to that question. If if he could, he'd play Griezmann as much as possible. So I know what his answer is. My answer is I'm not sure because of the whole compatibility thing with Felix too. Like to me, in a team like this, you can have one of them, but having both of them leads to a compatibility issue that's kind of hard to solve, and Simeone hasn't quite solved it yet. So, yeah. So I find it difficult. To me, I'm not sure if this team is really better with Griezmann most of the time, but it works out pretty well from a impact substitution perspective.
I think it's also, contextual to the team they play in and the tactics they play in. Fitting those two together, it might be easier to incorporate if you're a team that really dominates the ball and counter presses and is constantly, keeping possession. Like we've seen 2 10s work together before in multiple different schemes. Like, Pep has this in his arsenal, right? But
yes.
But Simeone in a defensive block, I'm not so sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're pressed for time. What do we got? Key matchups, I guess, if you want to hit that.
Yes, so I think the key matchups will really be that Vinicius against Atletico's right side sector, because Felipe is it's going to be an interesting matchup. Let's put it that way for Vinicius. And Nahuel Molina, let's just say it's relatively on the weaker side, so it could be an interesting opportunity for Vinicius to go there and dominate. So that's a good matchup that looks favorable to Real Madrid. Then on the other side, I'm still not entirely sure if Carrasco will start or not. So if he plays, then of course he's a threat to Real Madrid's right side. So always have to watch out for that. And then with Felix, it's that, beware of the threat that he poses, receiving the ball in between lines, and Real Madrid need to minimize that. Atletico, from their end, are already minimizing the possibility that the ball will get to Felix in those areas, and Real Madrid has to contribute to that too and try to minimize that risk, because, yes, he's going to be dangerous if you give him space to receive and to think. And of course, the other big matchup which is a more general one, is just beware of Griezmann and what he can do after the 60th minute. I think those are the main keys that I'm thinking about. This is going to be already over the week. We already saw what happened with Real Madrid's attack when, say, Kroos is not present. It just lacks structure, and breaking down Atletico needs someone who can provide you that kind of structure. So it's going to be nice to see the difference on, breaking down a deep block is never the same without Kroos, because he knows how to move the ball from side to side to best disorder and destabilize the opposition defense. So I do look forward towards to that, and because Atletico, one normal weakness of Atletico's 5-3-2 defense is that the block is very narrow, so you can destabilize it rather easily if you have very strong switches of play. And a lot of teams throughout the last couple of years have destabilized Atletico's defense by doing that. And Real Madrid can do the same with Kroos's switch of play. So that's gonna be important.
I have some breaking news for you while we're recording. Now Pele has chimed in on the dancing debate. So, quote, Pele on Twitter, quote, "Football is joy. It's a dance. It's a real party. Although racism still exists, we will not allow that to stop us from continuing to smile. And we will continue to fight racism this way, fighting for our right to be happy," end quote. So, I just want to point something out about this racism thing, because this cannot be connected to Koke at all. Koke has no part in being a racist. I just want to point that out. But what Pele, and I don't even know if Pele is aware of this, but what I do think there is grounds to be angry about is there was a very, very disturbing quote on Chiringuito last night about this. I don't know if you saw.
Yes, where they told, the one where they told Vinicius to stop being a monkey. Yes.
Yeah, that feel free to oppose that and rise against that as much as you want. But I just wanted to let it be known that this should not be connected to Koke. I guess we can quickly go over, Jose, just for the listeners' sake, just key updates on players. We haven't had squad lists yet because it's Friday. We'll get those tomorrow, and obviously press conferences tomorrow as well, which will clarify certain issues of certain players. But as of right now, not expected Benzema will make it. Militao is back, but I don't think he'll start over Rudiger. Vasquez, I don't think will be back. And then for Atletico, you have Savic out, Oblak out, Jimenez out. I think you mentioned Lemar out, right? And Sergio Reguilon, I don't think is going to be available either due to an injury. So
yeah, he's also not available at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up. All right, Jose, I think we got it all right.
Yep. As usual, it's gonna be a choppy game. I like what can we say? This is not, I'm not. I can never say that an Atletico Real Madrid is gonna be fun or that I look forward to it. I guess I just look forward to Real Madrid winning it. That's really what counts.
If you like, we can schedule in an entire episode 1 hour long just to talk about dancing. If you like, just send me a message if that's something that you're interested in, Jose.
Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely not. Oh, okay. I'll do that one solo.
I hope I don't have to add.
All right, Jose. It was
we
a pleasure.
can do now. If you tell me that if we 1 hour like Ibai Llanos, like we're just dancing around, then that might be better. But other than that, other than that, no.
All right, we'll see where it goes. We're pretty busy people, so I don't know if we'll get that far, but we'll see. Jose, thanks, my friend. It's a pleasure as always. We'll chat on Friday at the very latest. But yeah, enjoy the game. Take care, buddy. Thank you.
Yep. See you around, and thanks everyone for listening.
All right, before we wrap it up here and send you guys along on your way, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid who do so much to support the show, and they also get a ton of bonus content. If that's something you're interested in and being part of a bigger Real Madrid family, again, go to patreon.com/Managing Madrid. And we wanted to give a specific shout out to our $10 plus patrons, because if you pledge $10 or more per month, you get a specific shout out on the podcast as well as guaranteed responses to your questions. So shout out to Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Wei Paring, Will Sousa, Wamik Jamal, Umar Mahadi, Tyler Dixon, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Tark Goptas, Taleb Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sushank Damala, Sujai Wani, Sumanchu Singh, Sherry Sorial, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabal Sharapov, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuli Justin, Samir Z, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Adayafadi, Oscar Barrera, Nico Laxo, Nicolas Zapatero Zubiare, Nicholas Moller, Nick Ribeiro, MJ Diego, Mowgli, Nelson Masariego, Michael Zinberg, Marin Myrtle, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lex, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavernakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jeff Thurston, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Antakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Con P, Christian Toth, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Armin Gashi, Armando L, Antons Rudenko, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Alex Steiberg, Al Azaz Hussein, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalikovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Maghrour, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much. Hala Madrid, and we'll see you on the post-game podcast after the Atleti game.